So now, do all roads lead back to westerns? Is that the situation here?
I think in this country, yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, it's just the foundational myths and just such a... It's like the blank canvas for films to work off of, it feels like.
Yeah, there's something really astute about how this film, Eddington, the TV show, The Curse, a lot of things right now, thinking about contemporary life in America and the politics, are focused on that immigration from Mexico and the rest of Central and South America. They're thinking about the indigenous, the ways that they've been ignored and taken advantage of, and what's going on there. And yeah, they're thinking about this clash between left and right. And all that stuff is tied up together, and it's really important that we're thinking about all those things right now. So.
After those technical difficulties, I got lost. I feel like I feel like Leo. I'm not used to this.
I don't know the fucking password, man. Stop fucking with me. It's one battle after another, man. Paul Thomas Anderson, 3-hour film. Just Jungle came Pussy. Out. Jungle Pussy. Apparently that's her stage name in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's terrific. Yeah, you might want to go to literally anyone else for your opinions on One Battle After Another, because I think everyone's sounding off on this one, but some like it unauthorized. And I am Jay Brooks Young.
And I'm Zach Domes.
Whew. Yeah, we had to talk about this one. I saw it at the Music Box here in Chicago this weekend. Pretty much still packed in there. Of course, they're showing it on 70 millimeters, so it's the place to go see it. But wow, a really good time at the movies. That's kind of the thing to say. And I think, spoilers on this whole episode, just go see the movie, let's just talk about it straight up.
Yeah. Why hold back? Why hold back? The movie doesn't hold back. So why would we,
Did you just see it last night, Zach?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I hate when people say, when you go to a movie that's like a good movie, and people say something like "film is back." Have you seen people say that?
Yes, that's a meme in some parts of online film discourse. Yeah,
so absurd. But I think it is true to say though that a director like Paul Thomas Anderson is keeping film and movie going alive. In some sense, he's making amazing movies that could draw a larger crowd, and this is another masterpiece, as they might say. It's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. Yeah, I'm sure Bill Hader was just muttering to himself the entire time he was watching this one. Oh my God, it's like so powerful. It's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. Oh my God. I'm friends with that guy. I think well, firstly, you and I can, right off the bat, we could say there's an obvious reference made in this film, and I was delighted when I saw it. Battle of Algiers.
Yes. Yeah, it was already on my mind.
Same.
It's kind of the film that has to be said watching this or just thinking about what this film is about, right?
But I imagine, I haven't read the novel that it's loosely based off of, Vineland by Pynchon. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
So I don't first of all know like what the adaptation's like. I think it's more just like in theme, and some of the characters' names are the same and things like that. But I it's kind of amazing that Paul could read that novel and think of making a connection to Battle of Algiers. Because I don't know if that would be an obvious connection to make from the novel to a movie. And he makes that connection. I think that's fantastic because that whole first sequence is so it's like a modern day adaptation in some sense of Battle of Algiers, and connecting what that time was like there and some of the rebellion and things like that happening here is kind of fun to think on. And
yeah, in terms of the book, I assume, I haven't gone and checked, I assume the name of their group, the French 75, is taken from the book, because I don't know how you would land on that. Otherwise, it really has nothing to do with them in the film.
Sure. Right.
Which, to me, almost sounds like a Battle for Algiers or just an Algerian war reference, if I'm thinking something French in relation to armed rebellion.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think, I would think Pynchon. I mean, he's probably pulling from a lot of historical events when he's thinking about how that would look like in a more modern context. But yeah, you would have to think about Algeria. You'd probably think about Vietnam, the big notable ones from last century.
That's a good point. Yeah. We did just watch and talked about Army of Shadows, which is another kind of procedural film about a group of people working to undermine and revolt against the larger system. So yeah, these types of movies are in the zeitgeist, but I can't think of one that's been done in quite this way for a while, at least that's popular. So
yeah, it's interesting because that was like such a lightning rod political topic at the time that Algiers was made in the mid-'60s. Mm-hmm. And it was banned for quite a while in France. And you compare that to today, where I don't think there's any risk of one battle after another being banned here, or probably almost anywhere else. It's just a different kind of landscape in terms of what kind of cultural power that we think that films have, I
mean, it's true. I mean, we did just pass like the whole Jimmy Kimmel, deplatforming moment there. So there is an attempt to ban and censor certain ideas. So for sure, if the powers that be could, they would. But somehow film has avoided that, for as far as I can tell, in America.
Yeah. It's almost, this rebellion and the kind of politics of this film are almost like a backdrop for this family drama. They're not it doesn't feel like they're the reason for the film. They're not trying to galvanize for real action in some way. So I don't know, when you make a film like that, I'm always thinking about whoever it was that said the thing about how capitalism sort of absorbs and sublimates all kind of like revolutionary action and sells it back to us in a very like safe, tame way where we feel like our attitudes or our discontent with the system is being heard, but nothing actually changes with the system. You think about something like that because it's a film about revolutionary politics, but it's not trying to be revolutionary, and that feels almost antithetical. And I don't really want to put that on PTA specifically, because again, like what would that look like for a movie to actually be that? I don't think anyone has the answer right now, really. I think we're really far away from films making a difference in that way. So it's not like there was a a blueprint that he ignored. He's just, he makes films to reach people emotionally. And this film definitely does that. Yeah, I was really affected by it. And it's incredibly made. It's just, it's interesting. And again, I'm glad that someone's making political films, that someone's attempting it, at least. Even if we grant that there's like some danger to like this taking up oxygen and distracting people because it's interesting, but it's not actually revolutionary. That who is trying to be like revolutionary, who has like some kind of large platform right now? I don't know. Is it worth even criticizing PTA for that?
Yeah, I know. I think like, well, if you're going to do a revolutionary film in like and that's its purpose fundamentally, I think that the crowd who will come to see that film is going to be limited to whoever the revolutionaries would be. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be like a documentary on some issue, and trying to get people jazzed about that issue and fired up. And it's going to be for those people who are either on the edge of that group or in that group. So Paul Thomas Anderson's not making a film for revolutionaries. He's making a film for a larger audience. And by doing that, he has to make it nuanced, and he has to kind of hold up a mirror to society rather than saying any one thing in particular. Same type of thing that Ari Aster was doing with Eddington, I think, to some degree. One thing that Paul Thomas Anderson's doing, I think, more so than stating anything politically necessarily, is he's showing us how interconnected various groups are. Again, in sort of the same way Ari was. But here, it's a very interesting character, this girl, who's the child of, a revolutionary and a Nazi soldier, captain.
Christmas adventurer, please. Yeah, please.
Yeah. All hail Saint Nick.
All hail Saint Nick.
Yeah, she's the child. So, her character is complicated because her character represents how these factions are not separate. Like, in order to protest something, you have to have something to protest against. And so there'll always be protesting and there'll always be problems. Those two are always interlinked. Like, there's never going to be a utopian society in which there's no problems to rebel against. The two need each other. And obviously it's a love-hate relationship in some sense. They wish that the other didn't exist. But without it, what would there wouldn't be a dichotomy that causes all sorts of things to go on. It's sort of it's a problem. It's like there's problems in life, and the fact that there's problems means that we have to use energy and that we cannot help but have to create solutions for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just the way of It's just the way of humans. So yeah, Paul, he's just holding a mirror up to society and doing in a way that is so unique, like every time. Like all of his films, he's always doing something that like we haven't quite seen before.
Yeah, it's interesting to tease out the way that these opposed factions give each other a reason to exist and go on, to give each other this purpose. And you see when Leo and Bob falls back into the shadows or the sidelines, he doesn't have a purpose. And I mean, he's got PTSD and all kinds of other things that he also is dealing with. But, he is unmoored. He's just like having, he's struggling to get through life without that thing driving him the way it was when he was actively a part of this group with active ongoing goals. When we talked about Army of Shadows, it was really remarkable how sort of subjective and insular the film is following those characters, because you don't even have a sense when they're trying to accomplish one, individual goal at a time. Like, what is this actually getting us? Like, how is this actually advancing the cause in the war? It's so crazy that, like, when you have this goal so pronounced and you have some group, someone to fight against, you can really push yourself to keep going, even when you're really in the weeds, when there is no real tangible reward immediately in front of you. Yeah.
I mean, you a reference you could make in some sense is like you become, like Leo plays like a character that's sort of similar to the dude in some way. Like you just sort of, you get lost in your own little world of drugs and drinking. And of course in that movie, the dude's goals and become so arbitrary. So yeah, this is just a lot. He's just lost. And I think that is also saying something which I was thinking of wanting to talk about too, of just how, like, generationally the way that the way you can have certain activists from the past, they age. And so you have these people that that are alive today who are like in their 60s, let's say, and the type of activism that they had compared to the type of activism that we see with the young folks today. And I'm sure this has been the case in all generations and all different times, but there is kind of a disconnect that one could find between these two groups, even though they probably share very common goals, and yet there might be a breakdown in just generationally that causes the conversation to not be as fruitful as it could be, and then therefore the action to not be as implemented as it could be. Yeah, I mean, a couple of times in the movie it happens, right, where he's like trying to get the answer from that one guy, and that guy's like, well, your voice is very aggressive right now, and he's just like calling him names, and not actually adapting to him in the way that one would expect. You'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like yells at him even more. Like, there's something there that's like, to me, Leo still has in him, I think he still has in him, a desire to see change. It's just that he loses touch with community and people around him who would help him do that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you get a perspective when you get older that you just can't have earlier on, to recognize that, like, as much as you might want to change things, there are so many forces that is so reliant on other people that you're not going to be, the sole like implement of change, and that when it's time, like, it will happen in a sense. Like, it's not going to happen until all the people who need to make it happen are ready to make it happen. And when you're younger, like in that first section of the film, you're pushing, like you're trying to do every single thing that you can. And then, we see what happens very often to radical movements is it gets squashed and things go back to normal. And then you ask yourself, what was it for? And we get hints at a sort of greater effect that had on culture, like Sensei Sergio saying, it's not every day that you get to save a 75er. Like, people relate to their group, and people kind of look up to their group and what they did, but they didn't accomplish the goals that they set out to do. And are you literally going to, like, put your life on the line? Are you going to get back out there and start doing that again when you already, like, gave it everything and it completely fell apart and failed and people died and your family literally was fractured? No, I mean, you're gonna sit back to some extent. You're gonna try to live by the principles that you've always believed in, but you're gonna wait until the time is right, I guess. And it's really hard, I think, for young people to wrap their heads around that before they get to that point, you know? So that's that disconnect that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah.
And you try to help the people around you. And I love the sensei character, Benicio del Toro. This is an incredible performance. But just seeing that, like, he's trying to help who he can. He's got a Harriet Tubman situation, as he says, just trying to help people make it to this country and be safe. And it's incredible to see, you know, someone competent at that, just making the little difference that someone has to make. But yeah, that's not, you know, he's not changing the world with that. He's just being a good guy, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Profound performances in this movie. You're, as you pointed out, and yeah, he's being a good guy. I do have a question about that. I was thinking part of the way through there, he seemed like he knew a bit about, like, when he gives him the gun and he's sort of chatting with Leo. It's like he knew more than one would expect. Did he have any connection? This character, did he have connections to this group at all, or did he's just kind of going with the flow and catching Leo's drift?
Yeah, I don't think he has any connections. It doesn't seem to me.
He's just a wise guy. You know, yeah. Somebody said this was one of my favorite Letterboxd reviews, one-liners, that this was like Star Wars if the Jedi were black girls.
Yeah, I think that's Stavros. I believe that's him joining Letterboxd with a great line. Yeah. And so yeah, he kind of plays this like Yoda type character. If you were to expound on that metaphor. Yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah, it's like, I don't know, you keep your eyes open and you try to help the people who seem to be doing the things that you want to do or that you're aligned with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, outside of the sort of chaotic scene there, where he's, you know, his character's getting all of the immigrants gathered and sending them to like the church and things like that as decoys. Outside is this crazy scene with the protest, which was one of the first. It's one of the few good examples of when a protest is done well. I feel. I think I said with Eddington, I didn't think that the protesting was done well. It just felt cartoony, and that often is the case with most representations. But here, I thought it was done well, and I really appreciated that moment where we see in a movie the government or the police force bringing in
like a crisis actor.
Yeah, which is something we all postulate happens, and there's good evidence to say it does. But I don't remember that ever, you know, being shown in a film like that. So I thought that was well done. And I will also say right now, just the number of things that he's doing, and it never feels like it's too much to handle. I mean, what a feat to just like constantly all cylinders are going. There's all these different moving parts, and he somehow edits and connects all these dots perfectly somehow. So I thought, like, wow.
Yeah. It has to be said. This is like expert top level filmmaking. Yeah. And I appreciate Eddington for trying to do something similar, thinking about contemporary politics and stuff. But for me, it doesn't touch how well crafted One Battle After Another is, from that editing and camera work and stuff, and especially like the production design and how real everything looks. Mm-hmm. How like lived in, like the floor of Sensei's like karate school is all, it looks scuffed up and old like it would. Every part looks perfect. Yeah.
And even when it becomes, every part's perfect, and then there will be times, whether it's the set or it's the story itself, become a little bit, or not just a little bit, over the top and maybe even a little unrealistic at times. When those moments occur, it's like you're lifted out of the film and into a kind of mythical realm. And so it starts to feel like a once upon a time sort of film. Like it's not meant to be a true to life reenactment of something, but like a story. And so even and I'm thinking of specifically when they get on top of the roof and they're running around up there to try to flee from the cops that are coming inside the building. And there's this, you're really floating in that scene. I thought it was so well done, but it wasn't necessarily realistic, right? It wasn't that part felt more, the lights from below casting them as silhouettes against the smoke and the lights. That was like, we're flying at this point. But then you come back down, right? So then after you fly for a bit, Leo crashes down onto the ground, and it's like you come right back down, he gets tased, and you're right back into this realistic setting again. So it sort of oscillates between realism and magical realism or something like that.
Yeah, that's right, because it's lulling you is probably not the way to describe it, because it's an intense, very involving film, but it's lulling you into a sense of realism, and then something fantastical happens, or you're really caught up in how incredible and theatrical what's happening it looks or feels, and then there's some kind of reality butting in. Yeah, it's really well calibrated pretty much the whole way through.
Mm-hmm. So now, do all roads lead back to westerns? Is that the situation here?
I think in this country, yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, it's just the foundational myths and just it's just the blank slate that all films can go to as it's like the blank canvas for films to work off of. It feels like.
Yeah. And there's something really astute about how this film, Eddington, the TV show, The Curse, a lot of things right now, thinking about contemporary life in America and the politics, are focused on that immigration from Mexico and the rest of Central and South America. They're thinking about the indigenous, the ways that they've been ignored and taken advantage of, and what's going on there. And yeah, they're thinking about this clash between left and right. And all that stuff is tied up together, and it's really important that we're thinking about all those things right now. So it's very effective to have this film set in like California, I think is where pretty much the whole thing takes place, where immigration is a huge part of daily life and should be, or I don't know, should be focused on.
Yeah, I mean, timely. I mean, that's super timely for him to make a movie like this, yeah.
Yeah, I did wonder when he started putting this together. I could see maybe during the first Trump presidency, he was thinking, okay, we actually need a film about this, when they were rounding up immigrants and locking them in detention centers and stuff. And it's only become more timely into this second Trump presidency.
Yeah, it sure has. I mean, for a country like America, you'd think that there'd be a more empathetic and unifying understanding on this issue, and unfortunately there's not. So we need art and film and things like that to be doing more to showcase and to represent this issue. And someone like Paul Thomas Anderson is going to do it, like we said in the beginning, in a way that's not necessarily in your face, obvious about what needs to be done, or that you can't you don't have to watch this film and be on one side or the other necessarily, right? I think I do think that's important in film to do, because again, if you're going to make a film that's about the wrongs or the rights, either way, you're going to limit your audience, and that's the kind of movie you're making specifically. But here we have a blockbuster hit, and if you do it in a way where you can capture more audience, then the idea is going to spread better, obviously, because more people who would be against it might go and see it, and by the end, if they can get through it, which I think in this case they would, have just a wider view, or have a more of an interesting view of the matter.
Yeah. I think it's has the potential to kind of expand the vocabulary, the shared vocabulary between people, get them to think about things that they might not be aware of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that gets missed by people who do levy those criticisms about how revolutionary the film is. Like, I mean, there's just going to be films. There's going to be things, like movies that people go see. So it is helpful if those movies allow us to have a common ground to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and aren't just metaphors. Like, you could, like, people go to see something like Superman or these other movies, and they make connections from the kind of open metaphor. But, like, it's nice to see a movie that just tackles these things directly, too.
Yeah. That's something I was thinking about. I didn't see Superman, but reading some good Letterboxd reviews, like, yeah, I think what is happening in that film is a little too abstract in terms of this, like, fictional geopolitical situation that they put in that film that Superman, like, resolves, and people have connected to, like, Palestine, but that does feel way too abstract from at least how people describe it, for it to be something that, I don't know, gets people to think about that if they're not already thinking about it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Speaking of performances, or when you were talking about performances, Sean Penn.
Yeah.
An insane performance. And somehow, it's sort of amazing how you can watch, not necessarily in Sean Penn's case, but because I don't know another performance I can think of that he's done recently to compare to, but Paul Thomas Anderson as a director, bringing out the performances of various actors he works with, is incredible. And this dynamic that he had with Sean, I don't know what that was like on set, but Sean brought so much to this performance. It was amazing.
Yeah. I think BTA has an eye for who can perform, and he just needs to put them in the right role and let their sort of persona fit perfectly in that spot. And there's so much about Sean Penn that is, like, off-putting and goofy and sort of, like, risible, that he perfectly fits as, like, a weird kind of incel military sergeant guy. That's such a perfect casting. And yeah, he's probably a handful to deal with, but he's always been a really incredible actor. So when you have the right role where people aren't going to be distracted by thinking about the real person behind it, like when the public persona and the role kind of match up, and that's a good actor, then they can really give a good performance. Yeah,
I mean, to go from, it's been a long time at this point, but from, like, Harvey Milk sort of happy politician back in the day to a character like this one. That's such a range.
Yeah.
He does it so well that I kept forgetting that it was him a good chunk of the time. Somehow, it was one of the most realistic versions of a kind of pent-up, repressed soldier that I've seen, for sure.
Yeah.
I love the comment when his daughter, or who he finds out is his daughter, says that his shirt's too tight, and then she asks if he's gay. I just love the response he gives because it really it's revealing. Well,
she
suddenly.
doesn't.
Yeah.
What's revealing? She doesn't even ask if he's gay.
Right,
that's what he jumps to.
He says, "Will you think I'm gay?" Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
All the things that he's playing in those scenes with her, this sort of disgust, but this like parental thing that he's trying to reach out with. It's incredible. He's hitting so many different notes. And then you were talking about the kind of fantastical stuff, and I immediately thought of him walking away from the car wreck covered in blood.
Yeah.
Which I think everyone in my audience like just lost it. Yeah. Seeing that. What an incredible image. And again, like his walk,
I know,
is perfect. Like, yeah. There's not a better actor for this role. It's such a perfect performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gave me like a zombie vibe. Like suddenly we're in like a zombie movie. The villain is so villainous, right, that he can't be killed kind of feeling. That was insane. And right before that scene was one of the most incredibly filmed scenes I can recall in the last many years. People loved the sequence in Dune when Timothée Chalamet finally rides the worm. And as good as that was, there's a lot of effects and editing and post and all this stuff that goes into it. And no doubt was that incredible. But the chase scene, when we're driving over these hills and we're going up and down, and you're remembering when you were a kid, when you would go over those hills in the backseat of the car and you're driving over these hills, and it's not much of a chase scene in the way that chase scenes have been done cinematically before, where you have these spins and turns and you're in traffic and all this stuff. It's basically straightforward. He's chasing her from a distance over hills. But the way it's shot, unbelievable.
Yeah, so tense. And I think PTA and the team realized that they need to have like the practical crashes and everything where it feels very real, what's happening. And even the cars seem to act realistically. I love that Leo's like in this old beater car and it's just like clicking along. It runs really poorly. These other guys are in like these, top of the line muscle cars or whatever.
Yeah, you go from his daughter driving in that one car once she's stolen it to the guy in the other sports car. You go back and forth between them for a couple sequences, and then you go back to Leo, and you've got the loud kind of high pitched motor, and you just have to laugh. It was really funny. That's another thing to say. A lot of dark comedy that really worked for the most part throughout. It's one of those movies, again, when I start out thinking it's just going to be kind of an anxiety adrenaline ride, and then I realize, wow, this is hilarious. Once you get over the anxiety of them being chased and the problem they have to deal with a little bit, it starts to become just hilarious.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And if we start talking about Leo, I wasn't so sure about the casting right in the first part of the film, and I've kind of come around to just feeling like he was always sort of a loser a little bit. in over his head, and it was maybe a little lucky that this incredible revolutionary woman like kind of fell for him. But when the time skip happens, him as the sort of loser, paranoid dad is perfect, and another example of perfect casting, and the comedy of that is terrific. I think I saw some people on Letterboxd say that it was playing a little too much into the comedy, that he just became a joke instead of someone dealing with all the kind of trauma that he had gone through. But I think it ends up working because by the end of the film, it's still able to pull you emotionally into his story. And when he finally finds his daughter in the middle of the desert there, and they've got the guns, pointed at each other, like, it's very emotional. And of course, it's like two incredible actors, and the daughter too, Chase Infinity, is doing an incredible job in this film. But that's a testament to, like, even with the comedy, the film still has a handle on the character to where you are emotionally invested in this still.
Totally agree. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah. I think that Leo's character, I think what the biggest struggle with Leo is that he's too well known or something. Like, he's such a well-known actor, and his personality as just the person that he is off screen, and all of our understanding of him and stuff, just kind of, it always kind of affects how he shows up on a movie, especially like the first time you watch that movie. Like, I felt the same way about his other roles that he's done. What's the one that Martin Scorsese just did?
The Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. I felt like he's good for the role, but I couldn't make up my mind whether he was like perfect for the role. I just felt like he was good for that role, personally. But it might be because we have an idea of who Leo is in some sense, versus and also that Leo lately has kind of been playing the same sort of character, or like it hasn't been like that much of a range, except for, I suppose, Revenant, but that was a different type of movie altogether.
Yeah, he's really in that like movie star mode where you're watching Leo. You're not watching a unique character each time, but it's also a weird, it's unique for a movie star because, yeah, there is something kind of off-putting about him and his persona, not unlike someone like Sean Penn, but where it's good to put him in a role like this, where he is kind of a loser guy, and you can laugh at him while also relating when he has to reach out to his daughter and all go through that journey.
Yeah, I would say in terms of actors that he finds, or actors that he found for this movie, I would say a small part in the movie is one of the protesters played by Haim.
Alana Haim.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in the French 75 in the first part. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's the least convincing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
He chose her because he had her in the last film he did. So in Licorice Pizza, so he's worked with her.
Didn't expect her to get just shot in the head unceremoniously, so that
true. That's true.
A good surprising button on it. But yeah, that was another part of the first section where I was like, ooh, are we a little getting off the wrong foot here? Yeah.
But there was so much happening that you're just sort of like, you were able, at least I was able to fly with it, because it was all getting somewhere. It was a large, quick build up and backstory.
Yeah.
To a larger movie. It was like a 40-minute introduction to then a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. And that's really effective because that sort of propulsive Scorsese type montage storytelling has you on such a high, and then after the time jump, it's really a come down, and the film slows down, and you're all of a sudden really in this moment with Leo in the, I don't know if it's supposed to be present day, but like in that moment. That's really effective.
Yeah, exactly. And it's obvious that his wife left, right? And then, but we find out that he thinks that she was killed. But it's clear to us that she just left and went somewhere undisclosed, right?
Yes. Well, I'm not totally sure if that's a story that he's telling his daughter about her being killed.
Oh, right. Because, he got the letter. So that was a story he was telling her. That's right.
Yeah, and I think we don't know when he got that letter either, I guess, but.
Right, and that's Teyana Taylor, which is, that was a good choice. That was a fantastic choice. Do you know if Teyana's acted before?
Well, yeah, because she just starred in a film a year or two ago. Is called, what's it called? 1001, where she plays the mother to a young child. So a 2023 film that got really good reviews, but it was a pretty small indie film. But that's a starring role that I think really kind of launched her as an actor. Probably why she got cast in this.
Paul Thomas Anderson has always been interested in music and always has good music choices, so I'm guessing he was following her music for some time. She's a great artist who I remember her album KTSE from back probably like 5-7 years ago now.
Yeah, where was that, 2019 when all those Kanye produced albums were coming out?
It's helpful. It was helpful for her that he produced it because that gave it more.
Yeah. PTA, he might even have clocked her in one of Kanye's music videos. I forget if it was for the album at that time or an earlier one. But I remember there was a pretty big music video that she starred in. Of course, PTA makes a bunch of music videos himself, so he probably keeps his eye on those as well.
Right. One of them being Radiohead, of course, and so Johnny Greenwood's score. I would say that Johnny Greenwood's scores in other films of his have been good, like with Phantom Thread. Solid, right? But it's a lot of piano, it's more classical based. So it's very complementary to the film in a way that you can tell it's Johnny Greenwood, but it's in line with the film itself. So it sort of falls into the background sometimes. Whereas with this was in your face more often. Like the score comes at you throughout the entire film over and over again. And in ways that are kind of abrasive, but add to the anxiety. I was a fan.
Yeah. I think it was really well implemented. Some good choice, like needle drops as well. And
the American Girl at the end,
Yeah. There's another song. The song that's playing when he gives his daughter the letter, I recognize, but I couldn't find what that was. I have to track that down still. John Bryan, composer for Eternal Sunshine, among many other things, also contributed, I think, 2 songs for this.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And I would not be able to tell you where those are used, but that's fun because he's just a legend.
Yeah.
Regina Hall, in just a little bit of this film. She's got only like a couple scenes, but she always has so much emotion on her face. And that's a home run hitter that you've got just in a little bit part, really. But like just her like connecting with the daughter in the couple scenes is pretty powerful.
Yeah, somehow I probably have said this experience I had with Paul already before. I know I've mentioned it to you before. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but the first film of his I saw was The Master. And I saw it in theater with friends who had seen There Will Be Blood. And they were so excited they couldn't wait for his next masterpiece. So we all go to the theater and we sit down and we watch this film. And afterwards, they were pretty much appalled. They couldn't believe what they'd just seen. Because they were expecting something like what they had seen him do previously. But that's not what they got. They got this strange, kind of choppy, odd film about Scientology, sort of, with great performances and everything, but they didn't know what to do with it. But it being the first one, I was like, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. I loved it. And I'm kind of glad that was my first film of his, because I wouldn't suggest it to anybody if they had never seen anything by him, for that to be their first. But at the time, it's what I think I needed for film in that case. And every film I've watched of his since, but I think I've seen them all now, except for the very first one he did, Hard Eight. I've loved. He always changes it up. He has his style. Like, he works with the cinematographer. I don't know the name or if it's different people, but there's a style in the way it looks, kind of blown out, overexposed at times, grainy. There are certain, like with any director, any auteur, you're going to have like touches and like a certain way things unfold. But in terms of the kind of movie you're going to get and what it's going to be about and what you'll end up watching, you never know. And somehow, despite being unpredictable, he has had, I think, a longer string of great movies than pretty much any other director of our time. So,
yeah. I probably am a bit cooler on some of his films as a whole, and it's been a while since I watched the big ones. I still need to get to Magnolia. That's a real big one.
Yeah, and knowing your appreciation for certain films, I think you'll really like that one. Yeah, is my guess. But yeah,
he and I both share a love for Robert Altman, which I think is important for that film.
Robert Altman would have loved this film too, by the way.
Yeah. But no, I think PTA he's one of the most skilled stylists, and you maybe don't think of him as a stylish filmmaker, but yeah, he can construct a mood, a look, get incredible kind of unique, never before seen performances from actors that it's undeniable how accomplished he is. And some films I'm just, I'll find myself being unsure of what they're about, what they're kind of focused on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I would say that's a signature of his too, is to not be, is to kind of have that feeling and to leave people with that feeling of like, what did just happen, and not really knowing what to do with it. You might feel that way about Magnolia, but what Magnolia does, it does so many other things that I think you'll appreciate. But for sure, by the end, you're kind of like, of all the films he's done, maybe besides Inherent Vice, Magnolia, you're like, well, okay, what the hell? But despite that, though, it isn't the sum of its parts in a way every time. But it is definitely, so many parts of the film on their own are like insane every time.
Yeah. And I wonder if, going back to this film, people will have a question of like, why was this about the Leo character and the daughter? This is a film about political unrest in this country, but it becomes something very small. It becomes just about a family and about fostering something for the future. I mean, that it's a really hopeful ending, right? That he gives her the letter and she's gonna take in all of this troubled history that she inherits from her mother and her father. Well, her who she thought was her biological father, but
yeah.
But it's so hopeful that, she's going to go off and be involved in something, and he's going to lean back and smoke his joint and feel assured that, he's been able to raise her and they have this connection and she can always go to him for guidance or whatever. But it's interesting, is that like, is there something there about like this Gen X generation that PTA belongs to, like abdicating responsibility, just saying, I don't know, we tried or we thought we tried. Yeah, I hope you kids figure it out. Like,
so you could make, this is going to be I'm gonna stretch to a different point that's sort of similar, but let's get a totally different analogy, and I'm going to come back to this that you're saying. So bear with the connections here. You could say that that this representation of this soldier being like a white supremacist and wanting to belong to a white supremacist group is in some way a representation of like the army. But that's not how I would see that. I think I think sometimes metaphors work in reverse. In what I mean by that is the army would be a place that a white supremacist would want to end up. Like it's the perfect organization for some guy like that to want to get to and work his way into so that he can have connections and power. It isn't to say that the army's full of a bunch of white supremacists. It's to say that it's a organization that is a perfect place for them to want to get to. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Leo isn't a representation of Gen X. Gen X is a perfect group of people to find that kind of character in it, right? Like there's a bunch of people in the Gen X age who are extremely active and extremely like hopeful and all these things, leading the charge, all that stuff. But there's a bunch of people who, when they were young, thought that they could do something active and protest and all these things, and then find out that like when they become a parent or they get money hungry or whatever it might be, they get a little bit lazy, they get a little bit sidetracked, and they go and they live their life in a different way. I think the hope for any of that kind of person would be do your thing, whatever it might be, but be supportive. Because everyone has a different role. Not every single person can be like the Tayana character who's extremely full of grit and passionate and energetic. Leo isn't in this case. But he can be supportive. So he can sit there, take a selfie with an iPhone he just got for the first time in 16 years. Practically a grandfather behavior. He can sit there and do that. And at the same time, he can no longer worry about whether or not someone's going to come track him down. He can instead, from the safety of his own home, say to his daughter, who's the child of a rebellious, energetic spirit, have fun in Oakland. I love you. Go carry the torch. If that does that sound good or interesting?
Yeah.
You have to be careful. I know what you mean. You have to be careful. Like I think an artist, and especially filmmakers, have to be careful with what kind of representation they may be applying to the limited number of characters that they'll have in a movie. But I think in the larger picture, if you're going to do a movie that's like, mirroring real life to such a direct way, it may be some work on the audience's part to realize that this particular character is not representative of a larger whole, but a character that you could find within that whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be nice if that was the case? I think that's the hope. Wouldn't it be nice if And I think that is the case to some degree. There's plenty of people who, if the kids go out and protest, there's a bunch of adults, at least a lot that I know, who are like, that's awesome. Go and do it.
Yeah.
I went on this tour near where I live, there's this town that's sort of like it's been kept and rehabilitated to what it might have looked like 100, 200 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very colonial. And I went on this tour to go see it, and there's these people who work there daily. There's these older houses, and so you can go and you can talk to these people. And the day I went, there was a protest happening in a nearby town that was against Trump and all that stuff. And every one of these people who were just like normal people, I mean, your normal tour guide, maybe even volunteers, like just but because of the area we live in, it's kind of more liberal. Every one of them was like, yeah, we're all headed out today. We're all headed out at 2 to go join the protest. And like, they're in their like 50s, just volunteering, just chilling, but they're all like jazzed to go to this small town protest against the government. So I don't know. I don't think Paul Thomas Anderson is saying that. Essentially.
No. I think it's realistic about not just this country, but kind of human nature. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. He gives her that letter. He gives her that letter, I feel like that's human nature that he ended up in a position where like that's the most courageous thing he could do in some sense, is like be able to do that. Right? He goes to the school to talk to the teacher and he starts crying. We're not dealing with like a
and we see
healthy guy. Yeah.
No, we see him with at the highest stakes, the most on the line. He's still fucking up and making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want him, in the front lines of your movement at this point. And we probably need to be more realistic about like, people are who they are in a lot of ways, and they're not going to suddenly turn into militant revolutionaries. We need to find ways for them to be supportive, I guess.
Yeah. And that's when you said when you just said that, and then I responded with what I just responded with. That's what it made me think. Is like, oh, I hadn't even really thought of that. Like, what does his character ultimately mean in the end? But I think that's what it is to some degree. It's like from whatever position we're in, however we ended up here, what's the best we can do?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's as little as saying, do you want a granola bar for the road to the protest?
Yeah. I know it's terrific. Still, I'm gonna continue to think about this film and turn it over in my head. And I'm so glad that we got someone who is as good at this as Paul Thomas Anderson making a film about the present day. Thank you. Like, I'm so glad that these conversations are happening, and you're really seeing the response to this film and everybody talking about it, I think, because we all want to be having these conversations where, we want to figure out this current moment and what's going to happen with the Trump and everything that we're dealing with.
I know. So it would be nice to see some more movies that go against the current administration in some way. And I see, I always see people saying, Oscars, what are the Oscars gonna go to this one for? But hey, we got a lot of other great movies coming up too this year that we probably will talk about as time comes. But for the time being, we're gonna stick to our regular schedule again, talking about films from the past, 1970. And which one is it that we're talking about next?
A Touch of Zen, right? Which we shouted out in the Funeral Parade of Roses episode. But that should be next. A Taiwanese wuxia film, a martial arts epic. That will be
fantastic. Very interesting to dive into. Amazing. Fantastic. One battle after another. One podcast after another.
Whew. That's how it is.
That's how it is.